And I remember when she was a teen, she asked me, Mom, when you were young, there was no mobile phone, there was no GPS. How did you get around? So, that was her only access to entertainment. But it was like, at most, depending on how old she was, like, okay, max 20 minutes, And it's like, but now that she's older, right? I mean, the phone is so easy, right? It's just there. And it's like, people just Google. And I remember when she was a teen, she asked me, Mom, when you were young, there was no mobile phone, there was no GPS. How did you get around? I said, I use a map.
Yeah.
And we had street directories, right? That if you have to go someplace and you want to see how you use a street directory, it was a thick book here in Singapore that we had. And then backpacking, we use a map, right? We don't use the GPS, So I was telling her how I used to backpack, and then we need to have a compass, like a map, and that's how we did it.
Yeah,
And it was fun, getting lost and, and all of that, finding our way around. So yeah, I think these skills are missing.
Yeah. Like a negative photo, when you get like a photo developed.
Yes.
And you just have to go in there and it'd have all this stuff that's, on this tiny little bit of plastic screen that you have to sort of put under, and have a look. And it's like, oh God, because that ability to, investigate.
Yeah.
It was so different, because now everything is just so instant. It's always, available at the click of, the hand. But
and then you have to go through the catalog, because they have little drawers, and then you have to go like alphabetical order. Okay, after you find this, then you need to find something else in order to get the microfilms, in order to get the whatever, right? It's like, it's a long process just to get one piece of information.
I know. So everything is all just so instant now. And, we look at, just the way how society is just, is progressing with that. Everything is either instant or it's not good enough.
And people want replies quick.
Yeah.
They want instant replies.
Yeah.
And I don't do instant replies unless it is necessary. If not, I'm sorry, you text me at 11 p.m. I'm not going to reply to you at 11 p.m. Hours, I don't know.
I did have one the other day. It was like around 11:30 at night. Admittedly, something must have just happened, and they wouldn't have expected me to answer. They're just letting me know that they couldn't make their session, that morning. And so I just replied. I didn't actually type because I was worried about waking them up, but I did a thumbs up at 4:16 a.m. That's my world.
Yeah.
I knew that they would be worried that I might not get the message.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it's true. I would, if they text me at 11:30, I don't reply, but I'll reply at 6 a.m.
Yeah. Yeah, I know. It's funny, isn't it? So this whole social media, can be really, if you allow it to desensitize a lot of things. And, from people unfriending you, or, you might take it personal. You don't know their circumstances or anything like that, or they might not even be active on it. Who knows? Who really cares? But a lot of people put a lot of emphasis on that. And, that there should be, concentrating more on themselves, this whole social media. And because, a client of mine was talking about, they were going out on a date and they were having, only coffee. I don't think anything ever happened. And then, this person seemed really into them and it seemed to be going, okay. And then all of a sudden she said, I think he's ghosted me. And I said, well, what do you mean by that? And she's all of a sudden, communication stopped. And I went, oh, really? Or people break up with you on a text, all that because they don't like that confrontation. This is crazy.
It's so common. And I feel also people no longer know how to date because of the apps. And people would say things like, oh, I've got a new boyfriend. And I say, oh, okay, who is this person? Oh, this person is based in another country. So you haven't met? No. Then I said, then he's not your boyfriend. No. How can he be your boyfriend if you've never met? It's not a real relationship. But we talk to each other every day. Yeah, how would you know that's real? It's just, I don't know, the world.
Is there a Netflix movie called Dear John, or didn't he sort of prey on women, like sort of lonely women. And he had this whole story behind him who was just totally, utter lies. But, women believed him and fell for it.
Yeah, yeah. And I think the person didn't go to jail even.
This is crazy. I know, but it just goes to show you just how instant, it is. And,
I think when people are lonely and they're looking for love because they think fulfillment comes from outside of them,
yeah,
they are very susceptible to these sort of things because they are looking for something, the feeling something is missing inside them and they
yeah,
want that fulfillment. But another person can never fill that void. It can never be fulfilled by someone else. And these hard lessons come in different shapes and forms. And sometimes being scammed, is one way to learn the lesson and hopefully they learn.
yeah. Yeah, it's, and, kind of like, I really thankful for our age. Like I said, we know we've experienced life, pre social media, all that, we were just in the now. At
Yeah.
least we've got something to compare it with,
Yeah.
whereas the generations that are coming through now, what can they possibly compare it with?
Yeah.
Except for maybe, hopefully, their parents and that are guiding them, or I'm not saying, that they can't think for themselves. It's not about that. It's just it's a different environment now. So at least we can go, pre-internet, we knew what life was like, and it was actually there was an interview or an article. It was just on. I was just scrolling through on Instagram, and Jennifer Aniston. I used to love watching Friends back in the day. And so there was just pictures of her and I think and Brad Pitt when they got married. I remember that being such a big thing. It was all over the magazines and whatnot. And we all knew not to read, not to believe everything that was written in the magazines as
Yeah.
well. But there was just a couple of images of her, and I remember those images at the time. And what it was that someone was questioning her about, what did they do? Because their life as a celebrity was totally different to a life as a celebrity now. And where everything is just so in your face, everything is just instant. So they had the press. I thought that's a really interesting, question because I knew what life was like, but then it'll be hard for them to come through now, still be in today's age, and have all this information that, this whole new world happening around you that just didn't happen before. But
Yeah.
then when you're the new person coming through, you don't know any better.
Yeah. Yeah.
But
And for these celebrities, they're constantly under the microscope because of how fast media is moving, right, with the internet, and they never get a break. And it's not surprising that many of these very young celebrities fall into depression or have very, very, quite bad anxiety attacks because it's constant, right? It's constant.
yeah.
And they can't even go to the shops without someone snapping a photo of them and posting it immediately, right? Somewhere.
Mm.
It's constantly under scrutiny. It's really, really quite sad in a way, right?
Oh, it is. Yeah. It's just this whole image project, and it can be completely distorted, at the same time. I mean, how many times can we see, even on our own social media feeds, a person mouthing, but a different voice is coming out, and you think, really, is that person? No, obviously it's not. But, there's sometimes, there might be like such a clever,
Yeah,
edited, script that, like a pic that's done that's been
yeah,
so cleverly edited that how can we tell if that's the actual person talking or not?
yeah, yeah,
Whereas before that wasn't even, questionable.
yeah. 2 days ago, I had lunch with my sister and my father said, "Oh, after Trump won, there's a video I saw. He's riding a motorbike, and there are cats even on the motorbike. Like, why would he do that?" I'm like, "That's AI. That's not real." So, like the really old generation, like
Mm.
they don't know the difference, right? They take everything as truth and real, and
Yeah.
it's just yeah, it's funny.
Well, see, because, they've never come across the garbage, not in
Yeah.
that way. Whereas, we know what it was like before, and we can look at something now and go, oh, that's just, ridiculous because we understand the technology. Whereas, I know my father wouldn't have coped at
Yeah,
all.
and it's just they become like now that I look at my parents, right? They in this internet world. they have become so, and they are easily victims of scams, right? Because their world and how they see the world, if you compare, it's like, oh my God, they're really innocent, right? Like how they see things as everything in the news is truth. And now they still believe that it's truth, and they'll say things like, oh, but if it's not true, it wouldn't be in the news. I'm like, it's the other way around now.
That's right. Yeah. It's like when I do, food diaries with, coaching clients and they all are frightened of, writing things down that, I might judge them. I go, no, I am trained to read what's not written.
Exactly.
It's not about the chocolate that you have or the beer or the champagne. I just overlook that.
Exactly.
If I see more of that, I know that there's honesty.
Yeah. Yeah. And I often tell my clients also the same thing, right? I said, it's not what you tell me, it's what you don't tell me that gives me more information.
Yeah.
And they were like, oh,
Keeps them on their toes. But you can see where the vulnerability is, with
yeah,
the older generation, and like I said, even with ours, at least we can compare. They've lived a completely different generation. Whereas the generation coming through now, that's all they know, and
yeah,
that's why I'm hoping in some way it comes back to that full circle once
yeah,
again. And, in my second job, I deal with a lot of, I greet, people, they've come in to stay at, the beautiful place that, I work at overnight sometimes. And, they're excited for their holidays and, but, they're just so used to like checking into, accommodation where, you just get the polite, oh, hi, welcome, here's your room key, da 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 da. Whereas, I'll get the people that, that they're not all like that, but they might be in a real hurry to get to
yeah,
where they're going, and they're just completely oblivious to
yeah,
what's around them. And this particular place, it's a gate. So, and it's really clear that there's instructions there. You arrive, you press this for reception, da 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 da. And that's when we would then give them directions where to come. But they'll ring in a panic. They're not even at the gate. They've just pulled up somewhere and go, where do we go? And then we would give them directions. They'd come flying around, past reception. They'd come back and go, oh, I couldn't find anything. And I'd say, oh, that's all right. That's all part of the adventure. Or, oh, that's part of the showcasing, and it kind of breaks that seriousness because it sort of normalizes things. And
yeah, yeah,
there was one lady, this Asian lady, she was so fixated on where she needed to go, and she was, driving around. She was in a panic. She had to call, reception. Where am I? What? She's not listening. And then even to the point when she did get to the check-in area, like in the parking area, she reversed in, but she reversed so quickly that she was like had to put the brakes on, and then she like flew out the door. I thought, oh no, this is the person's clearly not going to listen to much, And she was so wound up, but I didn't tell her too much. I just told her what she needed to do so she could get to the room and park her car in the right spot. When she came down and she sort of defragged, that's when you started to see the personality come through. But they're just so completely wound up all the
yeah,
time.
yeah,
And, you see that. And, but one of the main things that a lot of people really enjoy is that human touch, that human connection. Not, oh, good evening, sir. How are you? Da, 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 da.
yeah,
And it's like, and we're so renowned for, the staff interaction. And I think it's because we're all like-minded there, or just like a family, but it's people mean something,
yeah,
you matter,
yeah,
what can I do to help? And
yeah,
people are taken back by it,
yeah,
it's like, oh my God, I can't believe, you have made my stay so welcome, or,
yeah,
not just not me, I'm just, like as in, where they've stayed. And we get a lot of feedback, from that. But I think it's just that human interaction. People have lost that human touch. So when
yeah,
they do get
yeah,
it, it comes as
yeah.
a surprise.
And when you interact with people differently and to make them feel like, hey, I'm not a face on your phone, right? I'm actually a human being and I say
Yeah.
hi to you. They don't know what to
Yeah.
do because
I experienced this, oh gosh, would have been about 30 years ago, and it was in Sydney, and I used to live near Manly. I remember when I had moved away from there and we moved up onto the coastal town, and I don't know, it was not long, it was not that. I've not been away from there for that long, but I came back because it's where my dad lived. And I remember, and I would just smile at, the person you make contact, you just smile. And so I was doing that, and this person looked at me as if to say, "Oh my God, what is she doing?" As if I was going to attack them, or and I'm there going, and I was really hurt by that, thinking, "Oh my God, what's this? How did this person think I'm harmful?" Because I smiled, and
Yeah.
I've never forgotten that. It's the first time I really came across that, and that would have been 30 years ago, and that was the difference between city and like say small coastal town, where people like to get away from the city to get out of that bubble and,
Yeah.
enjoy life a bit more. And, I get that where we are here now, like in Brisbane City, and it's interesting. There's an artist that's doing, like a mural wall at the moment, and it's part of like where I work as my second job. And, I checked her in and I was having a really lovely chat with her. And so she said, the difference in the community is so different. She said, I have had nothing but, oh, wow, like people are looking on and they're like, that looks amazing. And, people come up to you and talk to you. And she said, whereas in the city, everyone is just so critical and they've just got this, bubble around them and it's just
Yeah.
so different. And I said, well, that's the
Yeah.
difference. They're in their own little bubble, their own little world, and
Yeah.
you're just an extension of it. Whereas here, people see you.
Yeah.
And being in the moment, not being caught up.
Yeah. In Singapore, we have a different dynamics happening because the whole country is a city, right? And so we see the difference between like the much older, because our whole generation, I mean our whole population is everyone is just mixed up in this big pot, right? And so, but you see the difference. Like if you take the train or the bus, right? You see the young people just their faces on the phones. The older people, they tend to, well, also physically they're slower, but these are the people who are, I feel, more real in a sense that when you look at them and you smile back, they know how to interact with you as a human being. And despite living in the city, right, everything is fast paced, but I do also feel like there's this feeling of like the world is just moving too fast ahead of them, and they are, some of them, it feels like they're almost giving up, like, okay, we're not going to catch up. We're just going to take our time. We're just going to do our own thing and have our slow coffee, our slow meals, and they seem quite happy, right? Just being that and not trying to catch up. And but the world is just moving so quickly, right? There is
Like where we are in a coastal town, you'll get people that, that will, morning, morning, hi, how are you? Just when you're walking past. And then, and people love that, because it's warm and friendly and welcoming.
yeah,
When they start to move in with their city attitude,
mm,
all of a sudden they're not the ones that are going to say hello. They
yeah,
love being, welcomed and this and that, but they still haven't adapted themselves. So then it's a bit of a ripple effect because then, someone might make eye contact with them to get the cold brunt or the shoulder or whatever it is. And then so
mm,
the other people, oh, I'm just going to keep to myself. Because I've fallen into that at times when we have a lot of visitors over, peak season. And you can just tell that they're,
yeah,
you just know that there's, the visitors, and I don't even bother about it. Whereas before I go, morning, 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 particularly when you're out on a trail and there's no one around,
yeah,
and you walk past and they don't even bother to make eye contact, go, yep, good morning,
yeah,
and you just think, really, what's the world coming to?
yeah,
Like, do you not see me? Where I'm the only one,
yeah,
here.
yeah.
And you can't even bother to, just acknowledge, it's different if they're listening to something, but I think it says more about them than anything. But I don't know, they're just frightened to interact sometimes. Like,
I
don't look at
know.
me.
Yeah, like the human aspect is gone,
Yeah. And
really
it's,
gone.
like, and I think that's why where I work, where I mentioned before, it does have that human interaction. And, they ask for something, sure, what can we do? Or we'll send someone up to have a look, or, yep, let me get that for you. Like, nothing is a problem. I mean, mind you, we do get pains in the butt.
Yeah, yeah,
The entitled ones,
yeah.
or the ones that are clearly there for a holiday for themselves. But generally, overall, but it's that human interaction. I think people are really, really wanting that. So I always think, don't change who you are. The world needs more people like that.
Yeah.
eventually, it comes around.
Yeah. But to be fair, sometimes there are people who overdo it, right? They talk too much, like they start telling you their whole life story and you go like, I got to go.
Oh, yeah, no, I'm
There's
just
the other extreme too.
being polite, just to say hello.
Yeah.
Just the acknowledgement, not, you make eye contact, they just look away, or they'll only talk, they talk at you.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Talking to you, and
Yeah.
if you do something for them, they actually get blown away.
Mm.
And but I think sometimes it's a little reminder, like, hey, it's nice to have another human being do something nice for you, and people are just not used to that now. So yeah, I think we need to be more of that. That otherwise you just get so tunneled. And
I usually, when I walk my dog and the people on their phones, I don't move the dog away. I just let them face the dog and they jump, right?
yeah,
Like, you should be watching where you're going, you know?
yeah, I
I'm
know.
gonna move my dog away just because you're not watching where you're going, you
Yeah.
know?
And the
So
thing is that the more people that do that, the more entitled they think they are.
exactly,
Yeah,
exactly.
and then really at the end of the day, you're the one that needs to take responsibility for where you are.
And people have died here, right? Not watching where they're going on the busy street. Like they trust the green man so much. You see the green man on their phones, they walk and they didn't see the car coming.
Yeah,
And the car just knocked them down, right? I mean, for whatever reason, this car didn't see the red light. And it's
yeah, they're just
ridiculous. You still
oblivious.
have to watch. Don't
Yeah,
trust the red light. Yeah, you
I
trust the
think
red light, but don't trust the people, right? Because people make mistakes.
well, because it's that bubble. It's like walking around in this huge, big protected ball, that they just maneuvering around, they're going about their
Yeah.
day-to-day life. And, certain people will come into that ball, they want to, but anyone that they don't know or they're not familiar with, everything, I'm just this bubble sharing my piece of space with all the other bubbles around me. And, I see you, like I see you at a distance, I quickly acknowledge you, but you're not part of my bubble.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
So
yeah.
break that bubble.
Yes, break that bubble.
Just pop it.
Smile at people. Say
I
hello to them.
know. I know. Because deep down, they're wanting the same thing too. Just
Yeah.
human touch, human interaction. Yeah,
No.
so hopefully we'll get a bit more of that. Oh, and the language, that all this abbreviated talk, and it's like, what the hell is that? It was like CBB or something, on a text, and I've gone, can't be bothered. All this new language coming through, and I've gone, wow, like it is really. But people talk in that language.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I know I sound like my parents now coming through, but it's just, and it's going to change again. I do understand that, but it's that ability to, I don't know, interact.
Yeah. Well, if socially people are abbreviating, fine. But if you're doing that for work, shame on you, right? For
Yeah.
work, like let's say you're sending a work email or a work text and you're abbreviating, come on.
Yeah. And there was all these different words that have been said instead of the proper word. And anyway, and I don't normally say much, but anyway, one of mine was that when people say anyways with an S on the end. And so no, it's anyway. But I've noticed it comes out like I've seen it on the TV, anyways. And I'm thinking, what the hell is going on? Like the word is anyway. But
Yeah.
it's just because it's been so loosely said, people think it's normal. It's just so true because the language is just getting so loosely used that it's just not like anything now. And there was one of my clients she's in a book club, and she said, "Do you know how hard that was, Lena, to read a book like that?" She said, "I automatically want to just, put a full stop here." I said, "But
Why?
that can completely change like the interpretation.
Yeah. It
Like
will have a
even
totally different meaning.
yeah, completely change it." And she said, "Yeah, it's just," and I thought, "Oh, please."
That
That
book
is, I don't know what the book's name was, but they had no punctuation at all
on
whatsoever.
purpose.
Yeah, on purpose. Yep.
Was it like a social experiment?
I don't know. No, I don't know. She just said it was a book club because when I was writing my book I said, "Oh, I'd love for you to read." She said, "Oh, she said this book that we're reading at the moment, it has no punctuation at all." And I went, "Oh my God, how do you cope with that?" She said, "I automatically want to correct it." I sort of
Yeah.
find that really hard, to read because, without a comma, that you can completely change the outcome of a
Oh
sentence.
yeah, completely,
Yeah.
completely. Yeah, if it's a social experiment, I get that, right? Like you just want to see the different interpretations that you get from that one chapter or whatever. Like
Yeah.
what do you get out of this without punctuation? And to prove how important punctuation is, right? That's fine.
But
But
I mean, I think everyone's still trying to create that little bit of identity or something for themselves that,
yeah,
like at what point do you have to stop? Like you can keep going on and on, but to what extreme? And like I remember in my day, I remember there was one of the girls that was pregnant at 16, at school. It's like, oh my God,
yeah,
she's pregnant. It just does not have the same impact. It's like, you know, things that you would never have heard of, in our generation. Now all of a sudden it's just the normal.
yeah. Now it's so normal. It's like, oh, everybody does it. Like, you
You
know,
know,
yeah, I love tattoos. And there was something that I read very recently as well about people who have gone through trauma when they were young, that they don't know how to express it. They're expressing it through tattoos. What is it, What do they get out of it? So I thought that was a very interesting point.
yeah.
And maybe why we're seeing more and more people having tattoos now becoming very common because maybe people are feeling the pain or they don't know how to express that pain. That would be an interesting one to look.
That would be interesting because we've always said, my partner will always say, behind every tattoo is a story,
Yeah,
and so we would love people watching. We're not judging, but,
yeah.
we would just see it and go, oh, I wonder what their story is, you
And
know.
in Singapore, there's a very high number of people, very, very common to see people with tattoos now.
Mm,
Extremely common,
yeah.
especially among the young. And I go like, this is very curious, right? I mean, yes, there are more tattoo artists, but what is this thing that makes people want to go? And so I relate it back to my own story, right? Like my own life. Like, yeah, there was an urge when I was in my 20s. There was this real urge to want to get tattooed.
Also, when we're growing up and when we're in our 20s as well, like I'm sure it was the same for you, where, you weren't even allowed to display your tattoos at work. You had to cover your tattoos,
Yeah.
and everything had to be in a uniform. It was about, clean cut image and,
Yeah.
you went, or if a man had a pierced ear, you had to take it out.
Yeah.
But it's funny because we're still very judgmental,
Mm,
like that, because even though, tattoos and body piercings are far more accepted now, like, I've spent plenty of time in the hospitals with nurses with sleeves. And I thought, oh my God, like, I remember one nurse at first when you saw her, she looked really scary, because of the tattoos that she had all on her arm. And, she was the nicest person, but it was that immediate reaction.
yeah.
And there was something I saw on social media only this week, and it was to do with this school teacher. Now, he had every part of his body tattooed, like, well, so from the neck up. And he had his eyeballs, how they've got like a different color, like almost like a dark mirror type of thing, like very dark looking. And I
In
think he had
school.
plates in his ear. Yeah. So
Wow.
he was told by the school to cover them up. And because there was a thing where this makeup applicator was done, like he looked amazing, but he said, the school asked me to do that because they said I'm fearful, I'm this and that. So hearing from his side of things, he was just this, well, as the story projected, a gentle giant, that just chose to have tattoos and who wanted to look like this, but shouldn't be a reflection of his ability to teach. It was just because how his appearance came across. And I thought it was interesting hearing his take. But yet when
Yeah.
I looked at him, I go, oh my God,
Yeah.
who's
Yeah.
his teacher?
Yeah.
So there is a judgment whether or not you have tattoos or not. It's
Yeah.
just, I also thought he was trying to make a difference to create his own identity as well.
Mm,
So
mm.
how far do you have to keep stretching that band just
Yeah.
to make something of your own? At what
Yeah.
point, do we stop? But
Yeah. It's a good question. At what point do you stop? It's a
yeah,
question
yeah,
because once you start, it's almost like you can't stop. You just keep, but where is the line, right?
yeah,
And I think socially, this is something that we need to explore, right? as individuals, and ultimately we need to make our own decision. Where do we want to conform? And if we do, then what is our reason, right? So everybody has to make that decision. So he has to think for himself, right? This guy, like, yes, it's personal expression, but what about the impact, right? On the school, on the children, you know, is there an impact even, you know? So all these, we need to explore and I think the main thing is to be open to have conversations for
Yeah.
understanding. And I think that would, break down barriers, break down the walls, whatever it may be. And we live in such a different space now, right? Very, very different from when we were growing up.
Well, I
Gen
think,
X.
yeah, and I think too, where, we feel a bit more comfortable in our position,
Yeah,
because we have had all that growing up ourselves in a different way. We're embracing new technology, but how far, what's our limit? What's our cutoff point? Because, like we just said, where do you stop?
yeah. So,
Can't keep going with someone with a younger one who doesn't have anyone to compare it with except for their fellow peers. They're still trying to create something,
yeah.
but what's normal?
Yeah, the baseline is absolutely different from ours, right? The baseline is just so different.
Although I will admit there's some new parents that I'm like new mothers that I've interacted with lately, and they are just so set on creating a world that we're used to, that we were great, that they're not allowing the social media, they're not doing this, they're not doing that, they've got boundaries,
Yeah,
cross that line, there's a consequence.
yeah, yeah.
Not letting children dictate
That's
to
good.
them.
Yeah.
And I'm just going, wow, I've seen that with a couple of people that I know that have come through, and it's given me hope that, we were talking about the full circle. So yeah, it's been another interesting conversation again.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Yeah. Well, this was a different tone. It's a good one. So, shall we sign off?
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah. So, this is Shamla Tan from Singapore signing off. See you all.
Annalena Anderson from Sunshine Coast, Australia.
Yeah. Bye for now.
See you.